This is the last weekend of footy for over 30 weeks. This is the last football
This is it.
free weekend, even if it is football free, because there's still practice games on. There's a showdown today, which we'll be watching. So, yeah, it's just come around quickly, Kingy. Are you strapped in? Are you ready to go?
To be honest, I'm so excited about this season.
Yeah.
It's
Why in particular? Because a lot of people are saying this.
Well, I'll tell you why, and I've got a little challenge for you. And we're starting to get out. I know you don't do this unless you get specifically paid to do it. We worked that out last year. But I cannot come full circle on what my 8 looks like.
No, either can I.
We've got to put it in the paper. We've got to put it in the Herald Sun, and it's a dead loss regardless of what I go with. So in the end, this is what I've got, right? So this is where I'm at. Last weekend before.
Is this an exclusive for us at SEN before it goes into the Herald Sun?
No, well, I've got 6 teams that I'm definitely putting in.
What are they?
Collingwood, Brisbane, GWS, Carlton, Sydney and St Kilda. They're definitely going in. They're my top 6, if you like.
Collingwood, Brisbane, GWS, Carlton.
Sydney, St Kilda.
Sydney, St Kilda.
I think those 6 teams are playing finals. Then I've got a group of 7 that I've got no idea what's going to happen with them.
Yep.
The Western Bulldogs, Melbourne, Adelaide, Port Adelaide, Fremantle, Gold Coast, Essendon. I've got no idea what their seasons are going to be. And a lot will depend on, as it always does, the first 6 weeks of the season. Do you get yourself off to a flyer? The ladder this year will tell more lies in the first 6 weeks than it's ever done because of the bye structure. And we won't have parity. I don't think until round 6. So we won't know the proper ladder until everyone's got through this bye period.
Just in that 7 that you're uncertain of, did you have Geelong or they're not even in that 7?
I don't have them playing finals.
But you don't have them playing finals, yeah.
No.
But you don't even have them in the first.
I've
13.
put a line.
You don't have the Cats in the first.
No, they could finish in the 13. But my point is, only 2 of I've got to choose 2 of those 7 to finish my 8. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
I don't care if the order.
Geelong aren't even in contention for that.
No, not in my eyes. No. So I've left out totally West Coast, Geelong, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, Richmond. I might be wrong with all of that. Who knows?
Of course.
But that's I can't get any closer than that.
No, that is the hardest thing about this season, and you're spot on. There is a cluster of teams that we've got no idea how they're going to go.
Do you think Geelong will play finals?
I think they're a good. I think they're a good shot to play finals. But then if I say that, then someone will go, well, "Who are you going to leave out?"
Yeah, well,
it's a pretty good team that you're going to have to leave out.
What do you reckon if I put in the Herald Sun in their little crystal ball section, which is just, I'll tell you what it is. It's take a photo of it and remind me of it in 4 years or 4 months, one or the other. You just get smashed for it.
I know we had the same. So Chloe from The Age sent out the questionnaire during the week, and I will be doing the predictions for The Age.
Really?
They'll be going in the next week or so. So
what
Brownlow Rising Star.
That's
story
easy.
of the season.
You can be wrong with that stuff.
On the slide. Headline you won't see in fans' biggest gripe. But the ladder, well, I can't reveal it here first, can I?
Of course you can.
I have got...
I'll play the music again if you don't.
I've got Brisbane, Sydney, Collingwood, Carlton.
Brisbane, Sydney, Collingwood, Carlton, yeah.
Adelaide, Melbourne, the Giants and Gold Coast. So I have left out my beloved Port Adelaide.
You've left them out?
Yeah, I've left them out. Geelong, out. Bulldogs out, Fremantle out, Essendon out, Richmond out, the Saints out. I've got the slides on the Saints.
You've left Port Adelaide out.
I've left Port Adelaide out. I left them out last year. I've left them out again.
No, this is a story. This is a story.
This is
They've
not a
just
story.
re-signed Ken for 2 more years after you've said, got to re-sign him. He's doing a great job. He's turned pickle juice into champagne. He's turned a list that's no good. Then they've gone and recruited where they're poor, where they were weak in the back half of last year down back. And you still think they'll miss the 8?
Still think there are better teams. And I could be complete. Well, I was wrong last year. I left them out and they made me look foolish when they won 13 in a row. But I'm not as... But I'm always a bit apprehensive about your own team. before the start of the
Not,
season.
not to that level.
No,
leaving
I
them out
don't
of the
think
eight.
I hardly tipped them at all last year. I don't. Yeah, it's probably commonplace for me to be a bit harder on Port Adelaide
So if they miss the eight,
than the rest.
if
Yeah.
you are correct, positive corn, PAFs, if you are correct and they miss the eight, what's the fallout there?
Well, he's Justin Longmuir in going into the next season. He's Luke Beveridge. He's like any coach that would be under a significant amount of pressure.
Jeez.
You've left them out as well. All right, we've got into the heavy.
They're in my seven.
We've got into the heavy footy stuff early, and there's plenty more to come. What we do, a lot of the cut through comes from negative comments, and I was interested because JJ Redick is a former NBA player. He's made his way nicely into the media over there in America. He's got his own podcast. He's on ESPN. And it was just interesting after we had this discussion yesterday of what he had to say during the week. And I think our audience and you might be interested in what he had to say.
Now I want to address Stephen A's point. Since when is it players' jobs to educate people on basketball? When did that become a thing? When did that become a thing? Isn't that our job? Isn't that our job?
I'll answer.
I view that as my job. That's my job to educate people on basketball.
I'm letting you speak, and then I'll answer.
It's our job, Stephen A., to educate people on basketball. It's our job. And here's the reality. This is the ecosystem we live in. I can do a video on my podcast. I can do a video on my podcast where I break down the last 9 games the Pelicans have used Zion Williamson as the primary ball handler and what type of actions that has led to. I looked it up this morning. 54,000 views on YouTube. But I want to call out a coach yesterday. Oh, that gets tens of millions of engagements. That's the ecosystem we live in. So do fans actually want to be educated or not? Do they?
So it's interesting. I don't like the complaining about the media side of things, but what people want to engage in is often the negative stuff, isn't it? Like you could do some great analytics on First Crack or on AFL 360 on a Wednesday night. It's probably not going to get the same engagement if you came out and had some strong comments, for example, on Brad Scott when he was coaching at North Melbourne, is it?
100% right. And people, they sort of know it, but they don't want to accept it. And they don't want to believe that they are that person. But if you question a coach or talk about someone's role in the game, if you question, so years ago you would have, we're all questioning whether Geelong could actually were a finals team or not. You go with home and away, Chris, and you get hammered for saying it, and then they go on and win a flag, and then the fan gets the chance to come back at you. So I think they engage in it as well. It's not just the negative. It's engaging in that conversation for a period of time. So you're right. The negative always sells, doesn't it?
How many games you've been to, Kingy? You definitely would have been at North Melbourne because you were gushing over McKercher's kicking and you couldn't do that off the TV. Were you there?
I've been seeing him for 6 months. It's not.
Yeah.
Don't you start this? I'll play it again. How many have I'm going to a couple today. I'm going to try and get to both today. I'm going to try and get to Hawthorn versus the Dogs out at Whitten Oval, which would be tough to get a park out there when I leave here a little bit late. And then the old Linton Street Oval, RSEA Park, the Saints take on the Bombers. I'm really keen to see. I went and saw Essendon and the Saints last year. We did that game for Fox, and it was the worst game of the year.
That's right, it was.
I'm hoping it's better than that.
Yeah, well, yesterday was pretty ordinary, the Geelong-Carlton game, but, I mean, the conditions look to be extremely tough, hot and windy, and Harry McKay still can't kick. How big an issue is that?
Well, it's an issue, isn't it? You're only looking for little things, aren't you, though? I watched those games on replay yesterday, and obviously the game up north, Brisbane and the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
A lot to talk about from that game, I reckon.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Brisbane. Haven't they hit the ground running?
Well, they have, but they're a very good side. Charlie was on fire. Just some different things, though. They look like they were more aggressive, a bit more corridor stuff. And Darcy Gardner at full forward, centre forward. Is that going to work, do you think?
I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
How can you fit Joe and Eric and Gardner? I mean, he's clearly taken the Gunston role, but didn't even work with Jack Gunston, who's a very accomplished forward. So I'm not sure it's going to work with Gardner.
Didn't see Matty Rowell working on his first 3 steps, did you?
I did, actually.
Power.
Yeah.
Power. He's one of me. I'm calling him mums this year. Make you miss. You make you miss midfielders. The mums.
Yeah,
Whether
I
they
did.
break tackles or they just step around. He looked terrific. Sexton at half-back, did you like that?
See, I've always thought, why has it not worked for this guy? Every time I see him play, I like him. Now, clearly there's some defensive issues with that and running forward and all of that as a forward. But across half-back, he was getting plenty of it, taking the kick-ins.
I've got one job for you.
And I love Ainsworth as well.
Ainsworth, you're a fan of Ainsworth. You've
I'm a
always
big
thought-
fan of Ainsworth.
During the news, right, I want you to write for me what Damien Hardwick's feedback will be for Jack Lukosius post-match.
Okay, all right. I thought he might have given some strong feedback at quarter time, Dimmer, because he
time.
was.
Was
Hey,
he there?
been some big statements already in the pre-season. Damien Hardwick, he's got the premiership list. The floor is finals. The ceiling is untapped. So it didn't look like that yesterday. Just on whether clubs should have enough information on the issue, and look, it is a big issue. I've spoken to clubs who are incredibly frustrated about the lack of information that comes in relation to hair testing and the drug issue at their club. Firstly, I want to have a listen to Max Gawn on why he thinks Melbourne don't have a problem, because nothing has come across his desk in relation to, we'll get that up in a sec, Kingy, but I feel like as I'm working my way through this and waiting for the audio to come up, clubs need more info.
Yeah, but
They don't know enough.
Yeah, they don't know enough, but certainly you've got some privacy issues there as well. I mean, just because you play AFL football doesn't mean you should just be an open book for people to go into your private life.
No, but should the football manager, should the coach? I mean, they have all sorts of information about your medical records, and mostly for most of us, if we go to the doctor, that information is confidential. It's not the case at a footy club. It's a different environment that we're working in to the average person.
No, I don't agree. I think that they signed that away to the Players Association to look after. They don't have to be tested to the levels they are. They concede a lot of this information, the players. They don't have to. I mean, legally they don't have to. I think I'm different to you on this one. I think we don't need to know. I mean, if there's an issue,
No, we don't need to know,
No.
but the club needs to know. That the more
If the club
senior
know,
people
we'll know.
at the club. No, I'm talking coach and footy manager. The doctor already knows, and the AFL knows. But I think there should be more senior people at that footy club in the know. So
what's Alan Richardson going to be able to do over and above the club doctor?
Well, know if he's got a problem.
What's he going to be able to
Actually-
do though?
We'll sort it out. Actually, get to the bottom of the problem with his players. If he's got information, is power. If he's got information, he can go about sorting it out. But at the moment, they're in the dark. So here's Max Gawn. He's asked if they've got an issue at the culture of Melbourne when it comes to drugs. See, no one's going to come to Max and say, here's the problem, because they don't have that information. So his answer, he's got no idea. Max has got no idea whether he's got a problem at his club, because the only information he's got is through hair testing, which the players would never be told.
Do you think Max has no idea that the culture of that football club?
Well, that was
drugs?
the one example he's given. Until someone
publicly.
comes and tells me, well, I would think he speaks honestly.
Yeah. Well, if he knows there's an issue there that he's addressing and he's taking steps, he's not going to tell us. What would he say? Yeah, look, I'm working on a few things. We've got a few issues. Yeah, I'm working on a few things. He's not going to say that.
You would like a bit more honesty then, if he.
No.
So you're happy for him to lie and for issues just to come up at Melbourne, them to keep their supporters and their own heads in the sand.
Heads in the sand is an extreme. I'm happy for the
Gary,
club.
Gary Pert has said they got the best culture in 40 years.
Yeah,
Goodwin
well,
has said
that's
culture
wrong.
a million times.
Well, yeah. So
of course they got their heads in the
just
sand.
Stick with the one topic for a sec. So I'm more than comfortable for the club doctor to be in control of anything that needs to happen to these players, or the support they need, or the care they need behind the scenes, and I'm happy for that to stay private. I think once things get to different levels of the club, they get out and they become common knowledge. And if we're going to do that, you might as well do away with the strike system. You might as well change the whole lot and name and shame. That's my opinion, because once it gets
Would
past
that help? Would that help, though, Kingy, if the sanctions were stricter and if there was less leeway, would that reduce the instances? We've got a player
doesn't in America
taking drugs a couple of days allegedly before a game, and maybe texting teammates to get them involved after games.
Yeah,
Like, that's where we're at. That's the system that's been in place forever, and we've still got a player willing to risk it a couple of days before a game.
one player. So we've had
Yeah,
one
but
bad
others have been implicated in this as well.
Yeah. Well, Not to the levels of game day. I mean, game day is protected. I mean, that's just a complete error, and he'll pay his price for that. You can't be making sweeping statements on the back of what Joel Smith's done.
He's allegedly been texting other teammates as well, who have now been implicated as well.
And
it's not just one player.
No, well,
the whole footy club's been implicated in this.
The whole footy club.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course it is.
I think the number's important here. I think the number's important. I think if we're talking texting 2 players, 3 players, 20 players, 25, I think the number's important here before you make those statements.
No, I just think because we don't know that, automatically his teammates have been implicated. Whether that's 2, 3, 10, we don't know. And we don't know.
It is different though, isn't it?
So Todd Viney was on last night and I asked him whether he gets the information as well. Here's his response.
No, well, this is the big issue. No one seems to know until it's too late.
What's Todd Viney going to be able to do that the club doctor can't?
Sit the players down and get to the bottom of whether this is an issue. And there's a lot of things you can threaten selection. You can threaten their place on the list. He's spoken about.
So you might as well name and shame. You might as well name and shame. If you're going to drop a player, so you drop this week, right? Pick a name. Marcus Bontempelli gets dropped this week. You don't think people are going to say, hang on, what's happening here?
So Mark Robbins has written a piece in the Herald Sun where he says Alistair Clarkson with the 2008 Premiership team, there was an issue at Hawthorn and he has sat the group down and they have got to the bottom of it in that room. And I'm going to ask Sam Mitchell about it when he joins us because he would have been in that room. And then there was players in tears, players admitting that there was an issue and they sorted it out there and they went on to win the Premiership. That's the type of things that you can do. I don't have the strategies to deal with it. I'm not educated in it. But I feel like information is really important so that they can identify there is a problem and then Clarkson and Viney and Hood and Watt, these strong leaders can go about fixing it. But if you don't know, you don't know. And you just let it fester and then we have a player testing positive on game day.
So this is the angle. I'm coming from the support angle. I think you support the player, right? This is you challenge the behaviour, support the player. That's Ross Lyon's famous line. I think if you start with the doctor and stay with the doctor, you get support. You get an avenue forward. You get a way out of the issue. You get help. If you go the other side and you go to the staff, I don't care how high up the chain they are, you then go to punishment. You then go to strategies of punishing. Is it selection? Is it club sanction? Is it sacked? To me, it's a totally different shift.
Bailey Smith wasn't sacked. Ginnivan wasn't sacked. Mumford wasn't sacked. We've had other players. I think clubs are pretty good now at supporting.
They were sanctioned.
Yeah, sanctioned through the AFL.
Yeah. But that's my point. So it's penalty rather than support. I think right now, as it sits, I'm
both.
comfortable with how it sits right now. Otherwise, you're naming and shaming. You can't just drop a player and not tell people that it's drug related. That is ridiculous. I've got one for you. If I'm Matthew Nix, I'm going having a coffee with Mark Rasciuto and I'm saying, look, you know what? I'm invested in this club. I've shown that I can coach. I've given you enough evidence to show that we can succeed or contend here. And if you don't want to commit to that, then that's your call. That's fine. But, and it's a big but, if others come knocking with a generous financial reward and a significant tenure to coach elsewhere, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked if I investigate that further. Now,
It'd be a bold move.
Well, we've seen it before. It happened with Ross Lyon. It secured it going to Fremantle.
Lyon had some stronger results than Matthew Nix. So if I'm sitting there, I'm Roo, you're Matthew Nix, you've come to me, I say, well, Nixie, you've won 3, 7, 8 and 11 games in 4 years. I just need a little bit more information.
That's fine.
I don't think there's any need to rush into it, and we can make and have this discussion again after round 7 or 8.
Happy for you to have that opinion. There's no animosity here. We're all friends. But you can hold that reservation, right? And whilst you're gathering your thoughts and you're still not sure on me, whilst you've got that little asterisk, allow me to do the same thing from a coaching point of view and look after my career long term and investigate the opportunities if a Fremantle comes knocking or if a Western Bulldogs come knocking. So both parties are at play. I don't see. I would think.
Do you regard him that highly that he's in the poachable category, like Fremantle came and got Ross, or like the Saints are interested in Luke Beveridge, or like Gold Coast have done with Harvey? I don't see him at that level yet.
No, and it's impossible to see him at that level now. He doesn't have the evidence. The numbers aren't there. The wins aren't there just yet. But what are you looking for in a senior coach? Does he have that? And I think that most people are of the opinion that the West Coast Eagles would be looking for a new coach. I don't think Matthew Nicks has had the talent to work with at Adelaide that other clubs have had. Ross Lyon, when he left St Kilda, had far more talent than what the Adelaide Crows have got now, by comparison to the football club. So I'd say, don't leave me swinging here. If you don't want to back me, that's all right. But I think it's a coach's market. It's a seller's market at the moment. If you're a very good senior coach, there will be, I think, many opportunities at the end of this year for other employment opportunities. I think there potentially be a couple in Western Australia. There may be one, in the Western Bulldogs. Who knows what Chris Scott's doing? Well, Kenny's under pressure. You've said he's not going to make the 8. So if he's not making the 8, he's under pressure, isn't he? So all clubs are under pressure in different forms, but I just think it's a two-way discussion. We always just think, the club hold all the aces. Well, maybe not always.
Have you say 0433 98 11 16 is the Timber text. I was interviewing Jacob Kaczynski during the week, and I thought of you when he gave this answer, and some of the terms that players are now using I thought you might find interesting. That was a minute. How much information did he just give then of the life of playing as a key forward now, with rolling defences, zones, wingers coming back, opponents pressing from behind? I did like the term get lost between the cracks as a forward. That's what you're trying to do. I just thought it was a good insight into the fans out there who watch their forwards play and they go, gee, why can he never get free? Well, that's because another defender or a winger's come across to chop them out. I just thought it was a good bit of information.
It is. And I think the football fan's never been smarter, never been more across what's actually going on in the game. There's so many shows now that review, with good quality, high quality vision. And the average fan going to the football now, they see this. They see this constant rolling of players, particularly the wingman behind the ball first. So they're aware of that. Is he the answer for the Tigers?
No, I wouldn't have. I'm not confident in that, no.
How many games does he play this year?
We played 12 for Hawthorn last year, so I think he'll eclipse that depending on the availability of Tom Lynch and the success of Bolter and whether they can stand up. He probably plays most games, but it's just whether he can give them a meaningful return on investment. And he spoke about his inconsistencies at the level and why he believes that's the case, but he thinks the game style at Richmond will suit him better than perhaps it did at the Hawks.